History, art and culture are essential elements of community identity, and in the history of languages there is the need to translate and pass on the languages, which are nothing other than synonym of different ever-changing culture and national identities. In the last few decades, a new type of culture and a new type of translation, no longer destined for small groups of intellectuals, but for the masses, has emerged: translation for cinema and television. Films are a new type of art, made up of images and sounds, both ways to convey the cultures, the tradition, the habits, and the way of thinking of the country of production. The constant development that in recent decades has characterized especially the proliferation of television has forced international markets to adjust themselves to the opening of borders, and this has led to the overcoming of cultural and linguistic barriers between the country of production and that of distribution. Since film products are now the most successful media at all social levels, a wider distribution is now possible, thanks to the rapid technological development of the last few decades. The improvement of this sector has also led to a consolidation of the audiovisual translation of films, TV series, and documentaries, created in another language. This type of translation must be able to satisfy the multiple needs of the public, needs because they belong to a different social class or to another generation, or because they have a disability, for example. In all these cases, translators must work hard to mediate between their theoretical knowledge of the subject matter in question and both the cultures involved. In this specific field, translation is only the first step towards the conclusion of the translation work. In fact, it is during the adaptation phase that it acquires its cinematographic form. Various judgments have been made regarding the fidelity level of film adaptation, as a preference for image compared to the elements of the original text has been noted. In fact, translators have to be able to find the right balance between sounds and images and decode a wide network of relationships that are implicitly or explicitly encoded in the film through images, words, or both, but without changing the meaning of the movie. In this context, I examined the movie Gomorrah, referring in particular to the translation of dialects and colloquialism, but also analyzing some adaptation choices concerning idiomatic expressions and play on words. To fully understand the translation choices made for this kind of film, it is important to dwell on the bond between the Napolitan dialect and the cradle where it was born. Through dialect and slang, people are classified and feel part of a certain community, and it is the very use of that language that strengthens the culture and the cultural identity of the community in which they live. The translating process of this cause is based on the awareness that they do not have an exact equivalent in the standard language, and it is therefore the translator to be the real mediator. As regards both subtitling and dubbing, this work is sometimes more difficult than a traditional translation because of the strict rules related to length and synchronization that must be respected. What is interesting to notice is that often when films or TV series are researched in a dialect, they have a standard Italian subtitles, even when they are shown in Italy. This is necessary since the connotation of the target culture dialects can differ greatly from the source ones. In this case, the translator has to translate the dialect into a standard simplified Italian in order to create a subtitle that is fast to read and easy to understand. If you watch the film Gomorrah first with Italian subtitles and then in English, you will notice not only a strong Italianization of the subtitles in Italian, but also a real calque of them in the English version that lasts for the entire duration of the video. The main characteristic of subtitles is the shift from oral to written language, and this passage is called the amnesic transformation. In subtitles, spoken and colloquial language is transformed into a more formal and standardized language, that at the same time has to preserve the naturalness of spoken language. This is necessary if you want to match the images with the written aid without giving the viewer an impression of strangeness. Another aspect of this translation technique is the textual reduction, that is one of the most evident and at the same time criticized aspects. However, it is important to underline that there are objective factors that make this reduction process necessary. For example, the space-time boundaries, such as the synchrony with images, the reading time of the viewers, and the nature of the languages involved. Information are synthesized and reformulated, reduced at linguistic but not informative level. In the Italian subtitled version, often words or whole sentences are missing, sometimes for several consecutive lines. If you pay careful attention, you will notice that it is often in correspondence with standard Italian phrases, distant voices, emphasizing or repetitive phrases and questions. The same strategy is often used in the translation of swear words, which are often eliminated or attenuated. It is therefore important to evaluate the context in which such expressions are used, whether they are fundamental or whether the acting alone can fill the void of the omissions. Moreover, in the English version, a partial return to the dialect can be noticed. In fact, the translator is aware that for an English mother tongue who does not understand the spoken Napolitan dialect, it is important to perceive the dialectical connotation of the movie, which, without this return to dialect, would be impossible to recognize. In general, subtitling is considered a form of extra-diegetic translation, as it does not belong to true narration, but rather constitutes a component for its understanding. What it's important to remember is that this kind of translation, added to dubbing, voiceover, and audio description, serves and will serve for the exchange between different realities and cultures.